Hello and welcome to Pride of London Fan TV. Ali here, bringing you my match review of the game at White Hart Lane between Tottenham and Palace, which of course finished 3-1 to Tottenham in a extremely frustrating end to the game. We had it all going on, didn't we, with Eze's beautiful free kick, but we managed to, as only Palace can, absolutely capitulate. Let's go into it through all the usual features, Glasner's rating and man of the match. But let's just start with the first goal, because there's been a lot of stick coming Anderson's way, and probably there's a lot of justification for that. He should and could have done better with it. He should have just cleared it, but there were opportunities to deal with it, and him as well. The marking was extremely poor in the box, but it reminded me really of when we conceded late against Chelsea. We should have just, obviously, first of all, just cleared our lines and did some basic defending. But also, if you need to, just make a tactical foul. It was very, very naive and frustrating because we got ourselves in such a good position with Eze's brilliant free kick, and it seemed like a total waste. And then after that, it was just total capitulation. The second goal was equally poor defending, and suddenly we lost 3-1, which was a shame because I didn't think it was a 3-1 game at all. And actually, I couldn't really see Spurs scoring until we gifted them that goal. Yes, they were. I will hold my hands up and say they were the better team. They played the better football through the 90 minutes, but they really looked like they weren't going to score. They looked like a Tottenham yes, I'm saying the absolute obvious here, lacking Harry Kane. They had a few chances that they just didn't seem like they were going to put anything away, and then we just gift them a goal. So frustrating to get ourselves in that position through a brilliant free kick from Eze. It was a wonderful moment for everybody in the stands, everyone going mental after the frustration of the last few months, and then Palace being Palace, the frustration came back. But let's start with Glasner's rating. I'm going to give him a 5 because, look, if Roy Hodgson had made the substitutions that Glasner made and the game went the way it did, we would all be being quite harsh, probably, to be honest. So I've got to be fair and objective here. And it didn't help Glasner that Jordan Ayew came off with a knock, apparently. So that was the reason for Edouard coming on. But Edouard, for me, should have come on for Mateta. It's an obvious sub to me every week, with Mateta tiring on around 65, 70 minutes. And Edouard was so poor in the role behind Mateta against Burnley that to bring him on and basically have him on the left, Francois on the right, and tiring Mateta up front when you're trying to protect the lead at White Hart Lane with Ange Ball was extremely naive. I mean, what I personally would have done would probably have brought on Ahamada or Ozo. And I think one thing that I'd be interested in is Glasner prepared to transition between the 3 at the back to a 4 at the back mid-game? Because potentially what he could have done is gone 4 at the back, so have Mitchell on the left, Anderson and Richards in the middle, Ward on the right, and he could have just played Manos as like a right sort of midfielder, and then sacrifice one of those front 3 I alluded to in Edouard, Francois, and Mateta, and had an extra central midfielder in there, because it felt like before we even gifted them that goal that we were starting to lose control in the midfield. But that will be something that will be interesting with Glasner. I'm actually loving the 3 at the back, but it'd be interesting to know and see whether he will be transition at times between the formations, because I think that would be a really effective tool for us to have, to be able to transition from 3 at the back to 4 at the back if we need to. And I just felt we could have done with an extra man in central midfield. People will talk about taking Will Hughes off for Wharton. Taking Wharton off for Will Hughes, but I think that's a bit harsh. I mean, you can't blame Will Hughes for that first goal. I think what he should have done is, rather than take Wharton off, is keep Wharton on with Lerma, but add another central midfielder in with them. And that probably for me would have been Oza or Ahamada rather than Will Hughes. But listen, all of these negatives from the end of that game, I think, will eventually turn into positives for us next season. This is why this end of the season now, with Glasner coming in and learning from his mistakes, from the substitutions that he makes, he will learn about what works, what doesn't as well in terms of the formation. And there was some teething problems, I guess, in some of the marking for Tottenham's goals. but also he will learn about which players he can trust. And all of that will be invaluable for next season, where the lessons that he's going to learn from now until the end of the season, so we can hit the ground running next season. So I think, people were nervous, and myself included, about making this change mid-season, so to speak. But I think it's a positive thing, because I think it gives Glasner time now to find out what works for him in terms of his system in English football, which are the players he trusts, who he's going to see some plus requirements in the summer, and what he needs in the transfer market in the summer. So I went away very, very frustrated. I was so annoyed leaving the stadium. But when I reflected, I thought these negatives will turn into positives for us. And there were lots of positives in the game as well. Lots of positives. I felt like, I think Manos continues to impress, although at times he started to get caught out a bit in the second half. And we competed pretty well for 70 minutes, even though I do think Tottenham were the better team. What was obvious as well was that we really tired in the second half, and there were some very telling comments from Eze, who said that they were getting used to the intensity that Glasner was bringing in, and you could tell the players were dropping off. And to be honest, I don't want to hark back to the previous regime. It's time to let Roy rest, but it's pretty telling, isn't it? Man of the match for me, I thought Richards did very well, and it'd be harsh to blame him for the third goal, but I think he brings something that our central defence needed. And I hark back to Anderson now, but with Anderson and Gahey, I think I've always felt that partnership, as good as it has been, and people need to remember that, like, Anderson and Gahey has been a superb partnership for us. As good as it's been, I always felt like we've lacked somebody really commanding in there, particularly in the air. And I think Richards brings that. And I just love to see us play with a back three, with Richards on the right, Gahey on the left, and Anderson in the middle. I think that's when we'll really start playing in this system. But yeah, Eze obviously got the free kick, but for me, and the right decision to take him off and protect him, given other things that have gone on this season with injuries. But for me, man of the match, I'll go for Sam Johnstone. He made some important saves, particularly in the first half. And for me, he's without doubt the number one for me over Dean Henderson. He just gives more of an assurance for me to the defence. And I think long may that continue, him as the number one again. So that's my man of the match, Sam Johnstone. I've given Glasner a 5. Is that a bit harsh? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Who would have been your man of the match? What did you think overall? What did you think about the substitutions? What would you have done differently? I'm still excited about this new era, though. There were lots and lots of positives, as I said, in that game. Luton now becomes a really big game. That was the positive this weekend, though, was the other results went our way. But if we were to lose to Luton next weekend, suddenly we'd get nervous again. For me, it's very much like the Everton game when we went to Everton recently, a few weeks back. It's a must not lose. If we draw, we just keep the other teams at bay. But it's going to be a very interesting game. Luton, very good at set pieces and things like that. We're not great at defending them all the time. So I think it's going to be a hard game. One that we can definitely win, of course. But a very, very spicy game because Luton are fighting for their lives down there. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll be doing a review of that and some crowd shots of that. As always, let's hope that next weekend our luck changes a bit from this weekend just gone, and that we are feeling Glasner all over.